Welcome everyone to The Rift. I am your co-host, Jeremy Culver, aka Darsay.
And I'm Kyle Gloria, aka Kairu.
Kyle is back after a week off doing some work because who works? I mean, we have a podcast to record. I made the podcast at least. But no, Kyle is back now, and there were a lot of great matches last week that we highlighted, or at least I highlighted in the podcast, that kind of turned out roughly how I thought they would. Some games I didn't turn out exactly how I thought they were. But you know what? That's why they play the games. And we're going to be talking about this upcoming week's games as well in this podcast, as well as the comments from Reckless that, Kyle, you found very interesting. So we're going to be talking about that. And also, of course, the speculation of, will Broxa be able to finally play? Probably not this week, at least, but we'll still see. But as always, we start every podcast. Kyle, especially since you've been gone last week, how you doing?
I'm good. I obviously, as you said, I wasn't able to make it last week, but I watched your thoughts and everything, and it's pretty good. Pretty good. You missed out on something though, the fact that C9 beat TL, but hey, you should have talked about that more, I feel. Wow. But no, no. But overall, I've been good. I haven't been. I've been able to watch all the games though, still, even with being busy and working during the day. Luckily, I have a job that I can actually have the games kind of going on in the background a little bit too. I can kind of look at the phone or just listen to kind of what's going on, so I can really keep up with the LEC games because they're during the afternoon. So it keeps me entertained while I work as well. So.
And that's always a nice thing to have. So a little bit of entertainment while you make a brisk walk around town.
Yes.
Giving a little insight on what Kyle does. But Kyle, let's talk a little bit about, last week's games. Just going off the beginning of the show is what is your thoughts? Is there any game you wanted to highlight and talk a little bit about?
I thought the games overall was, there were some really fun matches out there. I want to say TSM seems to still have, I kind of want to highlight TSM a little bit, really quickly. The fact that I feel, even though they did win finally, their games, they tend to get to that midpoint and don't know what to do. I feel like their mid game really slows down, and it takes them a little bit to actually close out a game. And then I kind of just want to mention about the fact that the difference from their number one team, Cloud9, and CLG. Cloud9 obviously has looked dominant. This week they played Immortals and 100T, which, they should have won those games, especially the way they've been performing. But I just kind of want to highlight the fact that Cloud9 right now, first off, Sven has yet to die. He has a 51% KDA right now because he's yet to die. It's insane right now. And then they have 100% Baron control, and which is insane compared to CLG, which has a 0% Baron control right now. And a lot of their players, stat-wise, numbers, everything else, is terrible. For a team that we thought was going to be good and playoff bound, it is not working. And I don't know what it is, but you brought Smoothie in to hopefully bring some voice to the team, but then you bring Crown in, which I love, and a Korean coach as well. You're trying to have Smoothie that just yells, which I've heard now multiple reports that that's been his issue. It's not that he talks too much. It's just chaos when he talks. Two other guys that can't completely understand him, 100%, there's still that somewhat barrier. And it's looking bad for CLG overall. It is looking terrible.
Yeah, if you said at the beginning of the season when we talked about our preview of the season ahead, if you had came out, and I'm speaking directly at you at this point, and told me that CLG would be 0-4 heading into week 3 and would look like the worst team in the league, and by a long shot, I would say you're crazy. With this lineup, there's no way that they would be that bad. And yet here we are. CLG just looks so lost in all their games. And I can't remember what game specifically it was. I want to say it was the game against 100 Thieves. I could be wrong. But I was watching the game, and at one point I quit like watching what was going on on like the map, and I just started looking at the player cam and just was staring at it. And when you're staring at that player cam, you could see the frustrations in CLG's faces, and like and you could read their lips of like, oh my god, like that doesn't spell good things. And I don't know what it is. It could be, as you said, it could be the issue that Smoothie is yelling, and that is not getting across when you have Ruin and Crown, who may not fully understand them the way that, of course, that like Wiggly would be able to understand them in Stixay. It could be that a lot of these guys do have different play styles that are not meshing very well together. Or it could simply just be that, which I will say some games have been this case, in my opinion. Some games haven't, but like they just haven't drafted very well yet. You know, they've gotten some like good champions that you would want in a roster, but then it always seems like the roster doesn't fully fill out to a certain play style, whether it's full engage, whether it's a disengaged team, whether it's early scaling or it's late scaling. You know, it just doesn't seem like that team is well rounded, and I don't know what the issue is. But then, like as you said, go ahead.
I was gonna just bring up one more thing. COG as an org right now feels like it has issues for league, because even their academy team has yet to win. As a whole, they are 0-8. It's insane.
Yeah, and then I just want to do on the flip side, as you said, then you look at Cloud9, of course, top of the leaderboard, and right now, and granted, they technically are, because obviously Team Liquid doesn't have their jungler, but like they're the most complete team right now. Like their team looks very strong, very coordinated. They're very decisive. They don't let up any kind of situation. Now, I will say, maybe it was 100 Thieves. I can't remember which day it was. I'm trying to remember, but early game did go to the other team, and that I was sitting here going, oh my god, is Cloud9 going to stumble? Because Cloud9 had been so dominant in their first 2 wins. I think it might have been even their first 3 wins. I do think it was against 100 Thieves. I was like, oh my god, you know, they might be stumbling, because in those early games they were dominating, and then you turn around and it was like they were like, yeah, we were just like giving them some false hope. Let's flip that switch and turn it around, and like they just steamrolled. And that is something that me and you have talked about, and obviously you know me. I'm a huge Team Liquid fan. Obviously, that's my number 1 team, but I have been a Cloud9 side fan because of the old days of Meteos and High and Balls and stuff. Like I liked that team. I liked that squad because I liked those players. So Cloud9 is one of my teams that I do actually root for, unless you tell me that you like them and then I tell me you hate them. But that's the team or not this team, but just that's what we've been wanting in a team for NA. A team that can be early aggression and steamroll and carry things. And right now, that's what Cloud9 looks like. We've discussed this in past podcasts. How will that end up translating once they get to international play is always the question, because we talked about it in our podcast reviewing Worlds. Is we did think at Worlds Nisqy was the weak link, and right now Nisqy looks very strong, and we discussed that in LCS play he's always looked really strong, and that's something that I compared him to the pole belter that people talk about. Is like in league play, he's very strong, but once it got to international play, that's where all of the problems surfaced. Right now, Nisqy looks like he might have taken that step forward where this can translate to the international stage. But we won't know, of course, until we get to that international stage, like MSI. Yep. But at the moment, they are a very scary team, and I will admit, even if we get Broxa at the moment, I don't know, without seeing that team yet, if they could actually take down Cloud9 in its current form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with I feel right now current form C9, TL would need a better Broxa, like as in better than X Smithy. I feel like Broxa will need to really step up his game and just take TL to that next level they're hoping for Worlds and stuff. That's the whole reason for Broxa coming in. They're setting up to try to go to Worlds. But other than that, though, I do like, though, because even last week with TSM finally getting their wins, which is really nice to see. The team needed it. 5 really good teams right now. The number 6 spot in the playoff team is still going to be questionable, and that's going to be a bad game to watch currently in the playoffs. But, man, those other 5 teams, though, any of those matchups right now on paper, like just 2 weeks in, look like they'd be really fun playoff games to watch this spring.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I will say, just from my standpoint, and maybe this is one of the 5 teams that you have in there, but like I do like 100 Thieves' team and how they've performed on the map, and Ryoma has definitely played better than I thought, or at least not better than I thought, because I did say, and we talked about it before, that we hoped he played well. We just didn't have any scene of how he would perform. He's performed better than I anticipated, I would say. And I liked that. They have some issues that they still need to fix. Again, I'm not saying that they're a complete team, but I do think that they're a team that could get stronger as the season rolls on and they have more time to gel. Because in their wins, they've looked really good. Their losses have been where it's not always really good. Again, I did think that they looked really good in the early game against Cloud9, and then it kind of fell off the map there. And how much of that is, again, the team trying to meld together? How much is that the difference in just skill level between the teams? But I will say, if you did put them in there in your top 5, which, by the way, since you shook your head, I'm going to assume you did. I'm still not sold on TSM, simply because of the teams that they went up against this week to get their 2 wins are 2 teams that me and you have discussed and still think that they're one of the weaker links in the league. Evil Geniuses have looked really bad, and I'm still mad at them because after week 1, I was like, hey, they're pretty good. I'm going to put a lot of points in our pick'ems on one of their games against Golden Guardians. And I was glad Golden Guardians got the win, but I was mad that I ended up losing the pick'ems because of it. Like, so yeah. Against Evil Geniuses, and then again, we talked about it, Counter Logic Gaming, arguably not arguably, because they are the worst team in the league right now. That's 2 wins against teams that I can't justify that they're strong yet. We'll see how it comes with their week ahead, because now they're going to be playing against, a team that is in that top spots of Dignitas. So that's important to note.
Definitely.
Moving forward, we have to talk a little bit about picks, because we just talked about CLG's picks not being that great. Cloud9 looking like a complete team. Well, if you have to listen to Reckless, he's saying the picks right now do not seem strong, or do not feel good, I should say, because of league's balancing. So in a recent stream where Fnatic's Reckless was playing, he ended up saying about things, and he used in this his quotes and examples of Kaisa and Xayah, saying, quote, they were twice as good as every other AD carry in the game, and now they are not even played just because they released the new champions. Just to give an idea on what he's saying here, here on the .esports article, they talk about the 2 champions were the most picked bot lanes at Worlds 2019, with Xayah sporting an 83.1% pick ban rate, Kaisa at 80.5%. But as it's known, they have fallen out of favor with Senna and Aphelios, where they both have an 85% pick and ban rate. Kyle, what is your thoughts on those statements?
I think it's a mixture of, I think it's true partially and not true. Obviously, Riot as a business wants these champions to be shown off in pro play. They want, they want everybody else to be able to play them too. So I feel that with everybody, with Riot wanting everybody to be seen, that they release, they have to have them. But it's not true too, because you do have older picks that are still being played. Miss Fortune right now is almost a must play as well. If Senna or Aphelios is not being played, you're grabbing Miss Fortune, as she's the original champ. So there are still champions out there that are being picked over these other picks because they're just really good right now. And if I'm not mistaken, Zaya was actually released in 2017, 18.
I think 2018. I will check that while you're talking.
I believe there was a gap in between her and then when
2017.
2017. See, so her being strong last year, I mean, it's just what they had, they built up to that. And then as the season went on, they nerfed her down some, but then I'm drawing a blank now. With Senna right now, they're trying to fix her, and Aphelios has nerfs coming along, which I still don't think is going to be quite enough. But like I said, you have Miss Fortune and different things also being played. So there's still older champions that are being picked. But at the same time, Riot wants these new champs being seen on the main stage with pros' hands. Because balance team-wise, here's what the pros can play, but then you have 90% of the player base in silver and everything else. So it's hard to judge where these champs fit in until you see them in pro hands.
Yeah, basically looking at this, Zaya released in 2017. Kaisa didn't release until 2018. And then, marksmen after that were Senna and Aphelios. So I will say this when it comes to this whole situation is Reckless is 100% right. Is that people don't want to play the older champions because of the newer ones. And you're right, like, Miss Fortune is being picked up and things of that nature, but typically they're only being picked up because Aphelios or Senna has been banned. It's one of the teams are not having the ability to grab one of these new champions. But the reason it's happening is, and it's a known issue, it's been a long issue for Riot, is they release new champions and they're pretty broken most of the time. They're super strong. And the first patch comes out, and you just dominate with them, and then they usually get nerfed a little bit, and then you sometimes have ones that get nerfed into the ground and are no longer usable, and sometimes you have ones that get nerfed, then they're too weak, and then they get buffed, and it's too much of a buff, and there's this fluctuating of too buffed and too nerfed, too buffed, too nerfed. Miss Fortune currently, the reason she's being played is because she recently had gotten buffs and is super strong again. And just give it some time. She's going to get a nerf at some point that will weaken her, and you'll see Kaisa start to come back out, or Zaya will start to come back out. Caitlyn obviously is really strong right now too. But I will agree though. It does seem like on the LCS stage, at least in the marksman role, and to a similar extent in the mid lane, teams are very unlikely to try new things and try different stuff. And I will harken back to something we said many moons ago. I think it was 2 years ago now, 3 years, right as the franchising was taking place. we talked about it on that podcast that the one thing that would be nice about franchising is teams no longer had to worry about getting relegated. And because they didn't have to worry about getting relegated, we would see new players and variety of picks. Kyle, I have to ask you in your honest opinion, do you feel like those have been achieved? Because for me, I will say, not really. We've seen some newer players per se, but we also have seen reused players over and over. Keith, for example, getting switched into support role instead of bringing up a new up and coming support, at least trying them out. And we see a lot of similar champions being played every single week, every single game.
For the LCS, obviously, they've had this issue now with the not bringing in rookies to use other than Johnson now. That's, really the first. If you want to consider Closer and Ryoma rookies, then so be it. But overall, though, it's been LCS just does not know how to bring up people other than Cloud9. And it does hurt that part of it, like the LCS as a whole, North America. Where LEC, though, has brought up plenty of new players. And you see how well they do every single year, it feels like. Or split now for the last couple of splits. Champ-wise, though, it is meta-dependent, obviously. But Lee Sin's a really old champ. He's been brought out again. He was there are champs though that still get cycled in and out throughout each split, and it's just a matter of where Riot wants to take the meta. That's the biggest thing too. Is where does Riot want this meta to end up? Especially right now, and it's a spring split. Right now, spring split does not matter anymore at all. But once Riot figures out where they want the meta to sit, then we'll see what champs do end up getting pulled out. Because, like I said, Jarvan's out there again, even though he wasn't for, I forgot what season it was. Lee Sin kind of took a break for Elise is coming back. You do cycle out people, but the problem is right now, everybody's so focused on Senna and Aphelios, 2 new ADCs that were released basically back to back.
Mm-hmm.
And Senna's not even supposed to be an ADC to begin with. She's supposed to be. She's a hybrid, but she's supposed to be support more, followed by a subclass of ADC. So you could play her for both if you want to. You could play her ADC some games, but she's supposed to be focused more so around support. And obviously they ran into the issue, and that's why they're nerfing her. That's why they're changing things up with the way she can go. So now. I forgot who it was that did the math, but they were saying that the soul drops, where she gets all that like freaking 700 stupid range at the end of the game, it's going to be halved or even a little less. So that's going to hurt that play. At Double Lift interview with Travis Gafford was talking about Senna playing right now with ADC's bot lane. He's like, I was falling asleep on stage. It's so boring right now because you can't do anything at all till late because you got to sit there and poke farm soul. It's beyond boring right now because of the laners that's being played with Senna. But hopefully this patch just recently came out will help the league as a whole. But they're what, like a week behind they get the patch, I believe.
Yeah, they're usually a week behind.
So next week we should be able to see how much that changes things.
Yeah, and I will say this because you talked about the junglers thing for a little bit. I think at least the way that it comes across to me when Reckless is saying this is he's talking about the ADC role. Because he only used as examples Xayah and Kai'Sa, and of course he plays ADC, and he said that the only people that are being played right now are Aphelios and Senna. Because you're right, in the jungle spot there's always that fluctuating, but typically it always ends up going back to some norms. Rek'Sai, Elise, Lee Sin, Olaf obviously makes appearances from time to time. Sejuani will start making appearances because it's just those are like typical junglers that end up no matter what patch changes happen, they're strong and continue to work. But the ADC role has been a problem for a while, where it is constantly at first newly released champions. And like I said, until they get a super hard nerf, and then that usually nerfs them to the ground to where somebody else comes out for a little bit. And then it's all dependent on what does Riot's balancing team do after that. Do they give them buffs and they become overpowered again, and then you see that character come back out? Or does it happen like we've seen with like Sivir when she had like that rise of fame again? She got nerfed into the ground, and like no one ever plays her again because like she doesn't do what you need to do in the support role or in the ADC role. That is what I, at least the feeling that I got from Reckless's comments.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, Ezreal's been playing during that whole time. Varus was played during that whole time. There's other ADCs that are played during that time. It's just a matter of looking at the stats of saying, okay, but these are the ones that's played the most. But if you look at the ADC list and the ADC champ pool, they have the fewest champions that you could select from. So you're gonna have that issue of where the meta's at and which ones are strong and which ones aren't at the time. Because you do, though. You see Ezreal, Varus, you always see them still get pulled out every once in a while. I mean, not as much this split yet because of Fifth Helios Ascendant. That's just a hot thing right now. But with Xayah and Varus and Ezreal was played quite a bit. You know, like you do get other ADCs, but it's just like I said, I feel too, if you look at the pool of ADCs, there's not as much to choose from as where jungle, top lane, mid lane, and them all have. Like if you go to your League client right now, click on each individual list, and you'll see how much shorter that their list is compared to everybody else.
I do just think though, like, and I agree with you, like they definitely have the smallest list, and you're right. And that's because, of course, ADC is a very pigeoned role. You know, obviously, as we talked about it, and you talked about it as well, is like a lot of other roles can be played in other spots. So like mid laners or mages can be played in top lane as well, or they can be played in supports, and support can be played in mid lane or top. You know, we see those fluctuating of where they can play. The marksmen are pretty narrowed in their spot. Obviously, there are some that can be played top depending on the matchup, or mid depending on the matchup, but they're pretty much stuck to that role. And a top laner like typically cannot play an ADC. But you know, you talked about Ezreal and Varus being played, you know, during these stretches with new champions. Well, I will just say, to kind of slightly counter it though, is like how much of that though was because at that time, at those releases, there was only one marksman, and so like you either got that marksman or you didn't. And two, you know, looking at the list of released, you know, champions, and I wish I could just, this list that I have here, I could just go off of marksmen and when they released. But I mean, like, there's been obviously a gaps in between when are these marksmen's released, and so it's again like how much of it though is, you know, you look at it obviously besides like Ezreal, where Ezreal is at a different point, and he always has been, because obviously he's had some changes with his scaling and things of that nature. But it's like, so going to Xayah's release, you know, the marksman that was released before that was Jhin. And how often was Jhin played in that time frame between Xayah and Jhin? And even when Xayah was released, a lot of picks were Jhin. Before Jin's picks, the marksman that was released at that time was Kalista. How many times did we see Kalista picked? So often during that stretch. Now she's been, as I talked about it earlier, nerfed into the ground that she's basically dead, and like
they can't figure out how to do her.
Exactly. Like, it happens. We've seen it. So again, there are differences. It's obviously not a golden rule. Obviously, what Reckless is saying doesn't hold true, or like isn't the truth. Isn't like the spoken rule, but
Mhm.
what he says holds a lot of truth just because it's seen, it's played out in front of our faces. And again, I just feel like there's a lot of teams that aren't willing to try some other things to see if there is a hidden gem essentially in the current ADC role. That's my thoughts though.
Like I
Well,
said,
go ahead.
50-50.
50.
Oh no, I was just yeah.
All right. Well, because we've talked about all of that, let's kind of start looking at some of these games that we have for the week ahead. Obviously, as always, the LEC in Europe kicks it off on Friday. Kyle, with that matchup that you see on Friday, what's the one that you're paying the most attention to?
I'm gonna obviously have to go with Rogue G2. Rogue got their loss against a very good Origin team, which lost against a very good G2 team. I just want to see Rogue's step where they're like their stepping stone and kind of where they're at against the G2. Obviously they lost to Origin, but it'd be nice to see Rogue see if they can get a bounce back week against a G2 team that, well, Caps is unbelievable at playing anything he wants to play.
Yeah.
But I think that'd be a really fun game to watch. I think it'd be quite the bloodbath. I am still extremely curious, though, about G2 having the same issue that they've had since Worlds and before that. They cannot play early game. And I feel that's going to be a major issue in the world stage, bigger stages, if they continue to not be able to figure out how to actually create leads at the start.
Mm-hmm.
They're always constantly losing at the start. And then they show up because that team is unbelievable at team fighting. They're god tier when it comes to team fighting. That's how they bring back everything. It doesn't matter how far they're down. They know how to collapse, pick guys off, wrap around, and flank teams situations they don't want to be in. Like, their team fighting is unbelievable. But I want to see where this G2 team can go, like at bigger levels at Worlds and stuff. Obviously, they've gone in the finals already, but with an early game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an issue. And I want to see if they lose early game against Rogue, if Rogue is somebody that knows that they seem to play pretty clean late game as well, especially if they get that early lead. I want to see if this Rogue team can take advantage of that early lead and not falter against the pressure of knowing that G2 team can come back at any moment.
Yeah, I will say, so just speaking on it, because I completely agree with you, it obviously was our, questions or our issues that we had with the G2 team in our Worlds wrap-up, is you talked about the early game. They did have the early game lead against Origin, but they couldn't, I guess I would say, like, they couldn't grow it a lot. They got some early kills. At one point, I was just quickly trying to, like, look through it again, because I will fully admit I didn't get to watch this game. I had to do some errands, so I quickly scanned it, and they at one point were up, I think, like 3,000 gold, and then it turned around and Origin was able to close that gap down to like 1,000 gold or like 600 gold or something like that. And Origin, of course, had the early lead against Rogue, so that's where I'm curious is what we'll see when it comes to the Rogue G2 matchup is which team is going to be able to get that early lead, because, of course, Rogue couldn't get it against Origin. G2 got it against Origin, but can Rogue get it against G2? And can G2 replicate what they did against Origin? But they have to find a better way to get the lead and keep it and not let it close, because let's be honest. Unless, and for me at least, until we see Rogue or Origin do something at the international stage, G2 is the standard, is what you look at.
Yeah.
And so again, if G2 can't figure out a way to build an early lead against these teams like Rogue and Origin, who theoretically are weaker than them, how do they expect to be able to win and beat these international teams that continue to win? You know, obviously, again, there hasn't been a Western champion since season 1. Like,
I know.
it's true. So again, the other regions are by precedent stronger teams. So if you can't do it against your own league, your own teams, how do you expect to do it in a series against these other teams? And so that's my biggest thing when I look at this game for Rogue in G2. I want to see it because you already know, and we've talked about it, I'm a fan of Rogue's roster. I like how they play. Obviously, they're 3-1, just like Origin, because they took that loss to Origin.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think they can easily be top 3, and currently they're the third team that would qualify for Worlds, in my opinion. If the season ended today and this was like the summer split, they are the third most complete team. I think it is G2, Origin, and Rogue right now, and Fnatic is just behind them. Fnatic still has to get some things figured out, but if I'm going to take it today, though, again, I talked about it before, I can't bet against G2 until I see them fall, and I got G2 winning that game.
Yeah. Oh, so do I. G2 should win that game. Until G2 proves that they can lose, they're winning that game.
Yeah, so for me, the game that I'm looking at is Fnatic versus Excel Esports. You know, obviously this is a great matchup. Excel Esports has surprised me in how well they've played. You know, they've not been the strongest team, but they have looked really good. And obviously they talked about it on the weekend, but you know, ban Pantheon against Mickey because obviously Mickey went off on his Pantheon. So you know, it's great. We talked about how well of a pickup that was to get Young Buck for Excel Esports and how much that could help or benefit the team when it comes to what they like, how their team plays and drafts and strategizes to get ready for these games. And the other like part about it, which is what I'm a fan of, is it brings Young Buck back against his old team. Like, how much does that get, you know, Excel excited to or at least Young Buck excited to play against Fnatic and kind of either, you know, again, we don't know what the whole decision behind letting him go was. Maybe Young Buck just wanted to change the scenery, but like, maybe Young Buck is like, hey, this is why you shouldn't have let me go, pal. Like, and Excel shocks us and gets that win. I will say right now, I don't think that happens. I think Fnatic takes it, but I'm just, again, really intrigued to see, again, for this team, where does Excel actually stand against these upper teams, these top 4 teams? And then at the same time, I think this is going to be the first really good view of how much that Young Buck pick really changed the way this organization has looked. Because again, just using this as a quick example, Excel was kind of a laughing stock, you know, since they've been in the league. They haven't been like, they've had some games, they've had some good wins, but like they haven't been like no one considers them a serious contender. This could be the first time that changes, and you would, if it's me, I literally will point to the coach and be like, Young Buck is why this team is serious.
Oh yeah, 100%. As you said, it's gonna be a really interesting matchup, really fun matchup. Young Buck having to face off against Fnatic. But Excel lost to Misfits, so I'm done with them. No, I'm just no. But overall, though, Excel does look really good. Unfortunately, as you said, Mickey he blew up. But we've also said that Mickey's a guy too that can have those games, and he just happened to have that game against Excel. Fnatic, on the other hand, too, is another team that looks pretty good, like better than what they started out, obviously. And as you said, it's a perfect stepping stone to figure out where you're at as a team as a whole. I mean, is this if they're absolutely destroyed by Fnatic, then we'll be sitting here next week like, oh, okay, maybe they do belong towards the bottom. If it's a close game, like a Baron throw or a call towards that, like if they commit to a call and they lose because of that, I'm not going to blame them for that. I'm not going to, and they lose off that. They made a choice and they tried for it. It didn't work. Fnatic wins, so be it. But if that game was close to that point, then we could say, okay, maybe this team's going to be trying to fight to get to that next tier. But where's that tier exactly at? Is that tier, because obviously G2's by themselves. Then it's Rogue, then it's Origin, Rogue, Fnatic, and then it's a tier after that. So do they step up to that Fnatic tier, or are they going to be like on their own island? So you have Island by himself with G2, the next group, Excel, and then everybody else. Like where are they at? Because who knows? Or do they sit with like Mad Lions? Because Mad Lions is another team that I think is pretty good, and like
I thought I thought Mad Lions was good, and I went all in on them. And then last week, they tore my heart apart. I was like,
but
why?
They lost to Excel, though.
I know.
So they passed them, but then they go out and they beat Shoka, which Shoka is to me is garbage.
They're bad right now.
Yeah, but so where does Excel sit though overall? Like that's gonna be the question against this Fnatic team, just like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. So going to the next day, on Saturday for LEC, the big game I'm looking at is actually that match between Schalke and SK Gaming. And the reason being, and it sounds weird because of course most people will be like, why are you picking the bottom tier teams? Is because I think like this will help show where these two teams actually stack. Is Schalke as bad as they've played in recent weeks? Some people have said, or they feel that some of their problems have stemmed from Forgiven, who is so good, is just, as they call it, he's stuck in the past. He keeps trying to play these older champions that haven't worked out. Now, he did play Senna in one of the games this weekend. I think it was in the first game against Fnatic. I could be wrong. But he played Senna, played fairly well on it, but at the same time, it's kind of hard not to play good on Senna at the moment, as long as the game gets later. And then the other thing is like this SK Gaming team. Heading into the season, we kind of talked a little bit about the team, and I was saying how I like Crown Shot. I think Trick was good. Sakurai in the top lane I thought was like going to be okay, and I was like, I just don't really know like everyone else with this team. And right now they've just looked really, really weak. Their only win is against Team Vitality, who has also no wins and looks bad and currently is having to play with a substitute as well. So like,
yep.
How much does that team actually end up happening? But like, that's why I'm actually interested in this game, because sometimes these lower tiered teams, these teams that are near the bottom, you can get a good showing or a good idea of who is at the bottom because their team is actually bad, and who is at the bottom just because they need more time to coordinate and figure things out as a group. And that's why I think this is the game that I'm looking for. And I will say, unfortunately for SK Gaming, I think Schalke takes it because they should. Like, this team should be better than where they're at right now. And I don't know why they're still at 0-4 and how they're losing, because they haven't looked good. Yeah, I think Schalke gets their if they haven't won in the day before, which is against Misfits Gaming, which I do think they will probably lose that one. They gotta win against SK Gaming. I think this is their first win.
Yeah, and I will say too this about the Senna game with Forgiven. It's not his style, man. He loves to win lane. He that's his thing. He dominates lane.
Of course.
And Senna as a champion, like Double was stated, she's extremely boring. She sits back and she just tries to poke farm and try to get as many souls as she can. And then where the meta's at right now too. I wonder if that's affecting them. Because as soon as 8 minutes pop up, Rift Heroes up, here comes the swap. You swap up, you get the Rift, you get as much gold as you can from the top plates, and then you get that tower, you swap back around. And there's no true all-in fights. Like, you don't get a lot of solo kills within that 8 minutes because of the fact that there's no chance to be able to do that, because it's all right, here's Drake, 8 minutes, here's your Rift Hero, we'll swap. Who's gonna get what? Oh, okay, so SK has priority over Drake. We're gonna go take the plates up top with Rift. No, we got Drake priority, so we're gonna take Drift, or SK's gonna take priority and take top. Like that's just where the meta's at right now. It's there's no chance for these guys to be able to like really just go all in at times, which I think is part of the reason TL's kind of like, they look good, but they're not as dominant right now. It's because there's just too much moving back and forth right now. But for this game, I can see what you're saying, like who is the bottom. And this choke team just, as you said, doesn't feel they should be 0-4 on paper. They shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And it'll be nice to see how they can win this game. Is it going to be close, or is it going to be complete domination? I might lean choke just because I feel they should and have to win this. This is a must win for that team to gain any confidence.
Oh yeah, and that's sad to say because we're only week 3. Like that's,
I know.
We shouldn't be saying it's a must win, but for Shulk, I think I agree with you. I think it's a must win. Kyle, what's the big game you're looking at on Saturday?
I mean, I might as well say it. Fnatic G2, obviously. I want to see if G2 still has this weird thing against Fnatic and lose during the season. Fnatic's the one team, it seems like, that can beat G2 during season. And I want to see Perks versus Nemesis. Not, because since Caps moved to bot lane, I want to see Caps versus Reckless. There's matchups I want to see that's flip-flopped. And I'm really interested to see just, laning-wise, who's the dominant lanes. Especially right now, the way Caps is playing versus a Reckless. Reckless has been ADCing for how long now? Caps is just joining the party and dominating. I want to see if Caps absolutely destroys Reckless, or if Reckless can keep it close. That's my focus on this game. If Caps comes out and destroys Reckless, all right, Caps, you know what? You're a guy. I mean, you could do anything you want. You're the best player in the West, straight up.
I don't see. I will say this, just saying it right now. I don't see Caps destroying in bot lane, because Caps still, and I know he just role swap down there, so this isn't to say he can't fix this, but currently Caps just still makes too many mistakes in the bot lane. While he'll still win lane, but there has been several instances that the analysts have pointed out at the LEC of just Caps, you can tell he's still new and still learning kind of the nuances, so to speak, of that bot lane, at least at the pro league level. I'm not saying that he's some bad guy or whatever and doesn't know how to play ADC, because obviously he's really good at League of Legends. And these guys are only able to be this good if you're able to play multiple roles. You just might not be able to specialize in certain roles. And Caps just makes too many mistakes that I feel like Fnatic will be able to just pounce on it. As you said, Reckless has been playing for how many years? Hylissync has been playing support for how many years? I just think that is, if Fnatic has an advantage in any lane going into this game, I think it's the bot lane based on that. I am really excited for this game because of what you said. G2 just always seems to kind of falter or give the game away to Fnatic when we all expect Fnatic, or G2 should destroy them, I should say. And I was going to say Fnatic should lose. But we all expect G2 to win. And then somehow they always end up giving the game away. It's to put it into terms that you and I would get, and maybe some of our fellow sports fans would get it. It's like when the Bears are really dominant against a really bad Green Bay Packers team, and we've seen this for many years, where it's just like you hate when you see that schedule and you're like, oh crap, we play Green Bay, when you know they're going to, because you're like, even if we're really good, that could be the game we lose, because they always find a way to win, and that's what happens with this. I think G2 fans are probably looking at this game hoping they win, but they're like, oh, crap, it's Fnatic. I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again. Until they lose, though, I'm giving it to G2. They're gonna
You have to. Until they prove they can lose, they're never going to lose.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Kyle, for NA, what's your game on Saturday?
I am going to go with TSM Dig.
Ah, damn you. All right, go ahead. That was the game I was going to pick, so I'll pick a different game. Go ahead.
Well, the reasoning for this is because we know my Cloud9 is dominant and they're god tier right now. So there's not much else to say. But
you could see my face right now.
No, but I'm really interested in this game because I want to see where Dig is at, and if TSM, what they did last week, can perform well against a team that's been really good. Dig and TSM to me is one of the top 5 teams. Your 100T, when you said that, I think could be maybe 6 to me. But overall, though, I want to see how much TSM has learned this couple of weeks, being able to play now. 2 weeks now. They didn't get a whole lot of practice time, where Cloud9 had a ton of practice time. So now that they have a couple of weeks under their belt, I want to see how much they've learned and grown as a team. See if they can actually finish a game off if they start out strong. So I'm really interested in this just to see level wise, like who sits where. Can they keep this momentum going, or is TSM on the rise to try to compete for the top 3 like we predicted, or we didn't really, but top 4 maybe?
Yeah, I had them in my top 4.
Top 4, if they belong in that top 4, like we've stated, or a little higher.
Mm-hmm. I will say right now, the most important lane in this game will be the top lane. Broken Blade has played really well so far this season, and he's played extremely well in their 2 wins, of course. And Huni has been fairly instrumental with Dignitas's wins. You know, I will say the most instrumental person for Dignitas and their wins, though, has been Froggen. Oh. But I think when you have Bjergsen in your mid lane, you're not as worried. I still think that if you're a TSM fan and if you still look at NA, Bjergsen is still a really good mid laner, and I don't think anyone should be mistaken by TSM's recent issues that Bjergsen has lost his touch. No, he's still really good. But Broken Blade was the question mark heading into the offseason. A lot of people were upset that TSM didn't replace Broken Blade. And so far this season, he's came out firing, and I think a lot of people are like, well, I should say TSM is like, well, this is why we kept him. Now, granted, Broken Blade has played a lot of set. So does he get set in this matchup? And then if he doesn't get set, does he still play at the level he's been playing in this new one, or in this matchup, is going to be the biggest key to either TSM's win or TSM's loss. And that's the biggest thing I'm looking for. Dignitas, I already said it last week, is playing by far way better than I ever thought. The meta fits them really well currently, and Froggen must have taken a bath in the rejuvenation lake, because like he is doing really, really well, and kind of showing the Froggen of old.
He is.
You know, this is a hard one. I'm not going to give who I think is going to win yet, but Kyle, who do you think is going to win?
You were supposed to give who you were thinking is going to win.
No, it's your game. You got to choose first.
I think I'm going to give it to TSM.
Ooh.
I don't know. I think going 3 weeks in, I just feel TSM. I feel riding the momentum of, even though they're not strong teams, but getting those wins, feeling better about themselves. There's something about this. I just feel TSM's gonna kind of start stepping up a little bit, and I think Dig is a team that's, I think, will continue to play well, but they're gonna have their losses, and I just feel like this might be another one of those losses.
All right, I'm going to differ with you in future in the rest of this game because it'd be really bad if in this podcast we choose every single same team. But I am going to go with TSM just for the fact, as much as I want to be more like all in on Dignitas, I'm still hesitant. And I feel like this matchup could be that matchup that makes me more so take that step back, being like, yeah, see, this is why I still have my reservations on the team. Even though Dignitas beat Team Liquid, and that was a really good game, which for most people has solidified Dignitas as being one of those upper tier teams. I'm just still a little hesitant at the moment. So yeah, I go with TSM. I will say before I pick my games, I'm actually really interested in all these games this weekend, at least on Saturday. Because each one has a different story or can tell a different story. But the one I'm going to, and it's similar to what I did over in LEC, is I'm actually looking at the first game, Evil Geniuses versus CLG. Again, what are these teams? Who are they, and where do they actually rank? Because my biggest problem is still with like CLG is the same thing I have with Shulk, where I look at this roster and I'm like, they shouldn't be without a win right now. They should at least have one. Like, that's what I kind of look at. But then when I see them play, I'm like, what is going on? And Evil Geniuses, I like I said, I bought into them after week 1 and how they performed, and I was like, you know what? They could be better than what I anticipated, and I went in on them with our pick'ems that we do as friends with our little group, and I lost 8 points off of that match against Golden Guardians because I was so confident that they would be able to at least win that one. And that just makes me, again, I don't know what team's going to be there. A lot of this game, the most important role is going to be the jungle role, in my opinion, is Wiggly needs to step up for CLG in order for them to win. And that's a given. He has to step up. He has to play like the Wiggly last year that people thought, hey, like, they found a good jungler, they can do this. And obviously Sven Skaren has to play like MVP Sven Skaren and show why he was the MVP and show why he still should be in the league. And technically, I would look at it as show Cloud9 why you shouldn't have gotten rid of me. That's the lane that I'm looking at the most. I really am paying attention to that lane because every other lane, I think, like, in my opinion, there are some clear advantages of like who has an advantage in like some of the other lanes. But jungler is the one that I think is going to be the most decisive in this one. Kyle, before I give my team, because I forgot that you haven't even talked about it yet. What do you think about this game?
No, it's like you said, it's a matchup that you kind of try to figure out. I mean, does CLG have anything in them? Like, or is this, if it's legit, just a complete mess, you know? Evil Geniuses, if they can dominate this game and show like, oh no, listen, our performances week 1 is what we should be. Like, we should be better. And get a really good win against an extremely bad team. If CLG is that bad team, I mean, Evil Geniuses overall, Shizuke has been playing really well, even in his losses, playing really, really well. Bang has a really good, I mean, doesn't have a lot of kill. I mean, it's week 3, but he's up there with this KDA. It's like 11 KDA right now, 1.3 or something like that. Like, his KDA is looking really good right now, and his participation kills, I believe, is pretty high. So they have performance. Kumo's been playing better. I had question marks on Kumo coming in, and the first week it was like, maybe that's going to be their major weakness and downfall. but week 2 he played better. So it'll be interesting to see if they can dominate this game. Is it going to be a close game? Is CLG like dumpster fire, like complete dumpster fire, or do they have some kind of fight in them? Can they figure out a way to gel and figure out a play style that can fit them?
Mm-hmm. Just to help you out, yes, Bang's KDA currently is an 11.33, and his kill participation is at 87.2%.
87. See,
yeah, a lot of it, I will say though, is helpful. He did play Sona and had 100% kill participation in that game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I will say, as much as I want to think that this is the game that CLG will finally get their win, I don't. I think Evil Geniuses takes it. I will admit, I hope they do. And for my CLG fans, yes, give us a shout out and hit the like button. But I just hope they do, simply because I like Crown so much, and it just feels so bad. Like, I just feel so bad watching these matches and just how, again, how disoriented this team looks, and also being a fan of Smoothie, like it's hard watching some of these games. Kyle, Sunday, what's the game you're looking at? Or wait, is it supposed to be me first?
You can go first.
All right, I'll go first in this one. Okay, I probably sound like a broken record, but I'm gonna go with Immortals and 100 Thieves. Again, a simple thing of like, this is a week that we can really start to see like the separation of teams and kind of showing like the different tiers of where they were at, and I think 100 Thieves is a good team. As I already discussed earlier, Immortals is that team that we talked about heading into the season that we just thought that they would be kind of like there and wouldn't be doing a whole lot, and then they're sitting here at 2-2, tied with TSM, Team Liquid, and 100 Thieves. Like, I don't know. It's one of those. Immortals grabbing the win against TSM shocked me. I did think that TSM was going to take that game, and that match made me go, man, TSM is apparently really bad. Like, and that was like the difference. It wasn't like I went, wow, Immortals is better than what I thought. Like, I looked at it in the hindsight, like in the other aspect of TSM is worse than I thought. And that's where I think of heading into this game, because if Immortals beats 100 Thieves, then I have to go, wow, Immortals is better than I thought. But if 100 Thieves win, then I feel like it kind of justifies in my mind where I stacked these teams heading into the season and where I think these teams are going to go as the season plays out. So that's why I'm most interested in this, is to just kind of see that separation of who is an upper team pushing for playoffs and who is a team that is going to be at least scraping by at the moment, maybe can sneak into playoffs late.
Yeah, no, as you said, it's a really good test for both teams to figure out where they're at. I will say one thing. When I saw Ica play, I was like, oh, okay, so it's not what I'm thinking. He's doing a little bit better, but then he comes out last week and it was like, ooh, maybe that is an issue that I see being in this team.
Yep. I felt the same way.
Because I was just like, oh, no, Ica, this is why. This is why I thought it was going to be that bad. So it'll be interesting to see if he can bounce back and do better for this team. I just, I don't know. And then 100 Thieves, I feel it's a team that should be where they're at, maybe a little bit better. Because I feel like some of their players, the biggest one is Meteos, is not playing to the expectations we had for them. I just feel like Meteos hasn't been completely there, like at his top notch, at where he should be. I don't know how much of this has to do with it being spring split, or this teams that just need to play a little bit more to get going, or if it's an issue that's gonna be something that we're gonna have to start talking about more week in and week out. Like, what is going on with Meteos? He's just not performing like he should be. Ryoma started out kind of lost looking, nerves, I would say, but has gotten better. I mean, he's still not where I'm like, oh yeah, this, he's like, holy cow, this kid's pretty good. Uh, Still have my, reservations about him, but he's gotten better. He has improved.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see if this team can really, at top performances, how good they actually look.
Yeah. I agree with you, and I will say in this game, and it's probably just because I still stick by what I said heading into the season, is I think 100 Thieves takes this game. I think that they
Mm-hmm.
win. I don't think that they would lose to this Immortals team. And I think that this, you're right. They got to figure something out with Meteos, because Meteos looked good in their first win, and then like hasn't really looked good since. So yeah, what Meteos are we getting week in, week out is going to be a key question that comes up after this game. Kyle, your game.
Uh, Cloud9 Dig. I mean, my boys versus Dig. I'm interested to see. This week. They play both FlyQuest and Dig, both 3-1. Looking really strong, looking really good. So it's a true test of seeing how good C9 really is. Because right now, clearly they are the best team. Um,
By far.
by by far, yeah, exactly, and by far, as in even if C9 lose, depending on how they lose, kind of like what I stated previously in the LEC game, you could still say they could be the best team. They just happen to try something that just didn't work. So if this really close game again, and it's some call that they make and they lose on because they tried something, I still would. Nine's the cleanest looking team there is. They have a 5 minute difference on game time. Like they finish their games 5 minutes faster than everybody else in the league right now,
Mm-hmm.
and the games are going long. Like they've just been that good. But having two teams that are 3-1, it's a good test for them at finishing it out against this Dig team, especially depending on how that Dig game goes versus TSM. If Dig wins that TSM game, going into this game, it's even more hype because it's like, okay, let's see like where Dig stands and then compare to Cloud9.
Yeah. Depending on how the TSM Dig game goes, this game increases in
Mm-hmm.
stakes. Obviously, this is still early in the season. It's only week 3, but I will say it definitely does increase the stakes, because if Dignitas does end up pulling out a win against Cloud9, even as you said, like, yeah, I would still probably say after it that like Cloud9 is a better team than, or like is still the best team. It definitely makes you go, is Dignitas the second best team?
Yep.
That's the thing. Like it changes the discussion around Dignitas, where you quit calling them a top team and you would say, are they the second best team? Um,
Yep.
and so yeah, there's a lot that rides into this game, in my opinion. I will say I like just going real quickly because you talked about it. I'm really am looking forward to that FlyQuest Cloud9 game. I know we talked about
Mm-hmm.
other games, but like I really look forward to it. I think Cloud9 wins that, but like that's why I didn't bring it up as like my game that I want to watch. But I just am really intrigued by this because I really like this FlyQuest team. But this Dignitas Cloud9 game is the one that I actually see being a closer game. And I actually see a chance that Cloud9 could be upset. I'm not saying that it will happen, but I could see a chance in this one being the one that Cloud9 stumbles versus that FlyQuest game.
Yeah, I'm still picking C9 in this
Of
one.
course you are.
Have to go with my boys, but
Fanboy.
just because overall though they've looked the best, so I got to go with them. And my biggest question this week between both games: does Sven finally die?
Yes, of course. Like I look,
does he die against FlyQuest or does he die against it?
I think he dies against FlyQuest simply because I think FlyQuest and Cloud9, like I think that FlyQuest Cloud9 game is going to be a clown fiesta. Like it's going to be
that's just there's
going to be deaths all over the place because of how both teams play currently. Like they're going all in.
I will say if C9 loses a game, I almost feel they lose because of something Blabber does. As well as Blabber has played, even if it's against FlyQuest, just any of these games coming up, if Cloud9 loses a game, I almost feel it's going to be something that's on Blabber. Just because of Blabber's playstyle. It's just what he does. He takes chances.
I could see
chances that other people don't do. So if he goes in for a chance and dies off of something and then the team gets jumped on and then loses it because of it, I could see that happening. And that's where I could see this Cloud9 team finally losing something. But overall, though, not saying anything against Blabber because he's been really good. And if this team being as aggressive and fighting and roaming and everything else fits the way that Blabber plays, and it's nice to see a Cloud9 game team that has a really aggressive play style. It's really fun to watch. It has been really entertaining for me because I could see where you like TL. You have double lift and very aggressive, just lane. Like we're going to bully everybody and anybody. So it's been really fun to see my C9 team be able to do something like that.
Yeah. I'm going to just say, because of the fact that we've been exactly the same, I'm going to go Dignitas.
Right. Trust us, we don't pick the same, because if you could see our pick'ems last week, I ended with only like 70 points, I think it was 71 or something like that, where Jeremy ended up with a higher
89.
What you had 89. So we do have different different ideas on team.
Yeah. Like I said, I would have won if it wasn't for that damn Evil Geniuses versus Cloud9 or Golden Guardians. Still so mad about that. Ended up losing to two of our friends. Yeah, I'm going to go Dignitas just because I don't want us to be exactly the same on the episode. So,
but we know what you really want.
Yeah. And you know what? I will give you the favors for Monday night. What's the game you're looking for?
I mean, none. I mean, you're going against Golden Poo versus TL. I would say TL versus Golden Guardians. Golden Guardians hasn't played as bad as they as I thought they would be. I still don't like them. I still think they're really blah. But I'm interested to see another week with Surnfire on how well they do. Because my biggest thing right now, because it's kind of I'm glad I am going to talk about TL really quick here, is I want to know your thoughts on the Broxa situation. Because it's spring split and doesn't matter as much, how much do you think this is hurting TL? And how much do you think if Broxa gets denied, how much will this affect Summer? When it's really important, and do you think if Broxa joins, depending on when he joins, do you toss him in no matter what, playoffs or anything? If he gets to play the split, just toss him in since the spring. It doesn't matter. Just get him rolling. MSI. If he can't join till MSI, toss him in there because that's what you need. You need to practice with him for the upcoming summer. How much is this hurting TSM and our TL and how much are they missing Broxa right now?
That's actually a really good question. So, the first thing I will say, because you asked like several questions in there. The first one I will say is with Team Liquid, how quickly should they throw Broxa in? I think legitimately, if Broxa's your starter, you throw him in right away. It doesn't matter what like how much practice time you have, even if it's the day before and they literally got 1 day of practice, throw them in. The reason being is you need to give them as much time to gel before the summer split and before you potentially go to Worlds. So I don't care what it is, you have to throw them in right away. I still think you do care slightly about the spring split. And so I do think this hurts Team Liquid that Broxa still hasn't gotten the visa approval because this is valuable time that's being wasted. This is time that they can, again, gel and get things going and prepare for MSI, because MSI, while, some people look at it as a throwaway tournament because it technically doesn't obviously hold the prestige like Worlds, it is still international play, and it is still a great opportunity to see where you stack up against other teams. So, again, I think that is another issue that goes off of this. If Broxa gets denied, I think you still try, of course, for, to get ready for the summer split. So you would just resubmit the visa, obviously, with whatever changes you need to do to get it approved. But I think two things off of that. The first one is North America needs to figure out how to get the visa orders changed so that less players are getting denied. We've already seen Evil Geniuses had to drop 2 players. Let me say it. They dropped 1 player officially because of the visa being denied. And they potentially have a second player that they might have to drop that they're using a substitute over for, again, visa issues. And we've seen visa issues come up year in, year out in the LCS. I know that the U.S. government still doesn't fully look at esports as legitimate job, and that's what causes some of this visa issues. But the esports organization, and especially the players organization that is grouped together, just like the NFLPA and just like the NBA Players Association, the NBAPA, they have to figure out something to get lawmakers to change things. The other thing, though, I think you then need to, if you're Team Liquid, decide in that moment if it gets denied. And let's say they're like, look, it's denied. I don't know what the hell to do. They need to decide, are they going to stick with Schernfire and just roll with it and just keep him? Or are they going to go out and sign a new person? They have to make that decision then and there because, again, valuable time. They need to, if they're going to keep Schernfire, then you're fine. They've been practicing. Schernfire is, of course, going to get better as time goes on because, of course, he's coming from a different region to here, and that's where I think some of Team Liquid's struggles right now is just him getting accommodated to the play style in North America and just getting acclimated with his teammates. And the other thing is, you haven't lost any time frame. But if you aren't going to keep him as your starter and you're going to put him back in the academy like you planned, then get someone fast. And whoever it is, get them in.
Arcadian sitting out there still. I mean, in the academy and stuff, there's guys out there that's played in this level.
Yeah. That
they could grab if need be.
Yeah. So that's kind of my thoughts on that whole situation. But I hearken back to, and it's something that is, I'm glad you brought it up because it is something that has driven me up the wall, and maybe we do need to dedicate an actual discussion on this, is just that there are so many visa issues in North America for these players.
Oh yeah.
That it's a matter of, what do you have to do to get the U.S. government to understand that this is legitimate? You don't see that issue in the NBA. You don't see that issue in the MLB. You don't see that issue in the NFL. Obviously, there's not very many foreign players who play in the NFL, but still, you don't see those issues in those professional sports. Whether the U.S. government wants to understand it or not, it is still a job. It brings a lot of money to, this is a huge money thing. And just like the early days of the NFL, just like the early days of the NBA, a lot of people didn't think it was going to matter, and it does. So, as the famous Rick and Morty quote goes that I love is, get your shit together, all right? Yeah, so just because we spent a long time talking about that. I don't know if you want to add anything before we just choose.
TL's winning.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
TL's winning.
I see TL winning. I don't see them. I don't see any way that they lose
two.
That game.
IMT.
Yeah. So, game 2, IMT. Well, this was a long episode. Kyle got me on a rant there to end the episode.
I did.
So
hey,
I'm glad that
it needed to be somewhat discussed.
Yeah, so I'm glad that we ended up getting that discussion going. But This was a lot of fun. Obviously, it's week 3 again, so early, but there are some games that are must-wins, at least according to me and Kyle. And so let us know what you think in the comments below. So let us know, what some of your picks are, or if you think there are any must-wins, or if there's any things that you just differ with us in our opinions on things. But for the last time on this episode of The Rift, I am your co-host, Jeremy Culver, a.k.a. Darsay.
And I'm Kyle Gloria, aka Kairu.
Be sure to continue to check back next week as we always continue to bring you the news from The Rift.